Fame comes and goes. Titles fade. Even privilege can only take you so far. But a good name, that's one asset no one can steal from you. A good name opens doors to opportunities, spaces, and people you can never buy your way into. It provides safety because when life gets hard, people can vouch for you. And it's transferable. You can move cities, you can change jobs, you can change careers, whatever it is, your reputation always comes with you. In this episode, we're unpacking and talking about the power of a good name, what it really is, what it isn't, and the 3 values that I believe protect a good name. Because at the end of the day, your reputation is the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. And if you can shape that story very well, it's much more valuable than any degree, any course, any inheritance, any title. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the Men Rose Podcast. It's your host, Oba Okusanya, and I'm excited to have you here. Let's get into this week's podcast. Recently, I was thinking about how there's a lot of focus, there's a lot of emphasis placed on wealth and riches and the hustle and getting the bag and securing the bag. And everybody just wants to make money. Trust me, and I want to make money too. Let's be honest about that. But I also started to think about, how even with all the money in the world, if you have a terrible name, the money means nothing. If you have a terrible name, the money all of a sudden isn't as effective as it could be. It's not as attractive as it can be. And all of a sudden you're living life alone, you know what I mean? So, there's one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible talks about how a good name is more desirable than riches, meaning that there's no amount of money in the world that compares to having a good name. But in culture today, in society today, that's not really the focus. The focus is how to make your first $1 million. The focus is how to, get your first Porsche 911. I want one as well. I'm going to be honest with you, but there's also an importance of understanding that it's equally as important or even more important that you have a good name, that you have a good reputation. And like I said in the beginning of this podcast, that reputation is what is the story that people tell about you when you're not in the room. And if that story is one that's faulty, if that story is one that's negative, it could be very, very difficult to break out of that. It could be very, very difficult to, even if you had money, to use money to get your way out of that. But I want to just place some emphasis on the power of a good name because a good name is more desirable than riches. Anyways, let's get into it. I want to unpack what is a good name. What is a good name? In this video or this podcast, I'll use name and reputation interchangeably. But what is a good name? What is a good reputation? First of all, a good name is one that gives you access to opportunities. So by having a good name, by having a reputable name, a name of good reputation, a name that has a positive connotation to it, a positive story to it, like we're using in this analogy, right? You have access to opportunities. And those opportunities come in terms of people, in terms of spaces, in terms of places. A good name will give you access to the right people because the right people want to do business and want to do transactions and want to do relationships and want to do life with people that they believe are good people. So if you have a bad reputation, it's counterintuitive to think that because you have money, your money precedes your bad reputation. Like, no. At the end of the day, people are going to focus on the reputation and the things that have been said about you and the story that is attributed to your name rather than, just, oh yeah, you have money, so I'm just going to do work. I'm going to do work with you or do life with you. No, it doesn't work that way. So a good name gives access to opportunities. A good name is such an incredible asset to have. I once heard this analogy that reputation is like a master key. You might not own the building, but you do have access because of a good name, right? So it's a master key that opens a lot of doors, and those doors are opening because of the good name. Another benefit of a good name is safety. And yes, I'm talking about safety in the sense that by having a good name, you essentially have good relationships, and then you have a safety net. In that case, in the sense of people, because we've all experienced times in life when things get difficult and you run out of options by yourself, in and of yourself, and you have to reach out to people in your network. You have to reach out to people outside of yourself for help. And, if you're not somebody who's trustworthy, if you're not somebody who has a good name, who has a good reputation, it might be difficult to find people that you can rely on. And if you're watching this or listening to this and you struggled in the past to find safety, in the sense that you've struggled in the past to find people that you can rely on, I want you to take a step back and look at it from their perspective. If you were them, would you help you? Like, be honest, right? If the answer is no, then it's an indication that there's some work to be done. It's an indication that your reputation might need to be fixed. Your name might need to be fixed. And I'm not talking about changing your name, because that's sort of like a band-aid solution. No, no, no. I'm talking about a deep sort of rethinking of, what are the things that I do that are maybe rubbing people off the wrong way? What are the things that I'm doing that are actually negative in the eyes of other people? And turning those around. Because you have to realize that the safety that you're missing out on in life in this moment can be provided by people that are around you, but only if they know that you're trustworthy, only if they know that you're good for it, only if they know that they can actually trust you, right? So a good name also provides safety. Now, the third thing that a good name also provides, that I believe is one of the most important aspects of a good name or a good reputation, is the fact that it's transferable. I recently saw a study that talks about how transgenerational wealth, essentially money, wealth accumulated in one generation and passed down through generations, historically across wealthy families, doesn't make it past the second generation, which is crazy. Because I'm talking like millions and billions of dollars here. And they're saying by the time it gets to the second generation, they just eat through most of it. And there's nothing that goes to the third generation. Actually, the study said over 70% of transgenerational wealth doesn't make it into the next generation. That is crazy. Like, what? You would think that because it's millions of dollars, it would take time for people to kind of spend through that, but that's not the case. And unlike that scenario that I just painted, a good name is something that is transferable for generations. However, it can also be ruined. But the fact that you can transfer that good name across generations, but even within your generation and within yourself, the fact that you can take your reputation and use that, the credibility that you've built on your name, and use that in other aspects and other fields, it's that transferable reputation, that transferable credibility that I'm talking about here as well. There's a transferable, a good name is a transferable asset, in the sense that if you switch industries, the reputation that you had in one can also follow you into the next. A lot of the companies that we know nowadays that are super successful didn't start out in the industry that they're currently in, but because they were able to build a reputation, and eventually it translated over into other industries and other things they did, right? So this is why I'm saying having a good name is so important, because that reputation will always follow you, and that is credibility for the long road, for the long term, for whatever it is you're going to do down the road. Now, I want to quickly and briefly just touch on what a good name is not. A good name is not necessarily wealth. A good name is not necessarily about your bank account and the number of, I guess, cars that you have and houses and homes that you have and all that stuff. That's not what a good name is about. People can make it seem like that's what a good name is about, but at the end of the day, that's really not what it's about. A lot of people who are super wealthy, unfortunately, also have bad characters and bad reputations around them. Case in point, example. Everyone knows Steve Jobs as the founder of, Apple, and, like, brilliant inventor and all these things. But if you ask the people really close to him, he wasn't the nicest of people. He didn't really have that good of a reputation. So much so that I saw an interview with someone who worked with him in the early days of Apple, and he said it was miserable to be around him. But he was a genius, but it was miserable to be around him. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live a life where people consider it a misery to be around me. And yes, you're celebrated around the world because of your inventions. But if you removed the inventions and you removed all of that from his name, what are you left with? Right? So a good name is not just about, oh yeah, like, it's not just critical acclaim. It's not just, oh, I'm popular or everyone knows me around the world. That's not what it is. It's the people closest to you. What did they say about you? There's a lot of people who, are celebrated all around the world, but at the same time, the people closest to them know who they really are, and it's not it. right? So a good name is not about wealth, and it's not about like achievements. And I want to say this as well. It can be, but it's not always about, is how I should actually put it. A good name is not always about achievement. It's not always about wealth. There's people who, like, for instance, there's monks, there's people of different cultures that have high reputation. And if you actually look at it, they don't have too much to their name in terms of wealth. Yeah. But the impact, the influence, that they've been able to have on the world and on their families and on people around them, they have good reputations. So a good reputation is not always about wealth. And it's not always about social class or always about privilege. There's people who unfortunately are probably not super wealthy but have good reputations. I heard the story of a man who um he not a super wealthy guy, not even really wealthy at all by any standards. He just happened to know people. And I always say that, like, if you know people, you can get out of whatever it is that you're in, because by knowing them, you're able to tap into their existing networks and their values and all of that stuff, right? So even though this guy in question wasn't super wealthy, because he had the right connections, because he knew the right people, because he was also trustworthy, people were willing to go to bat for him. People were willing to say, you know what, if he needs something, I'll help. You know what I mean? So it's not always about the money in the account. It's not always about the money in your pocket. A good name is beyond wealth. It's beyond the money in the account. A good reputation is beyond all of that. Anyways, let's get into the three things that I believe protect a good name. The number one thing, the first one, I believe is integrity. And if you're asking, Oba, what is integrity? I personally define integrity as doing the right thing when no one's watching. Like, I want you to imagine yourself today. I want you to imagine that you're in a situation where you have two choices to make, but there's no one watching. Your integrity plays out in those situations where no one is watching, and you can take the actions without any consequences. That's when your integrity plays out. Now, the reason why integrity is so important to a good name is because integrity is, apart from the fact that people can see that you're a person of high integrity, it's the fact that integrity also feeds your subconscious about who you really are. Because you can lie to everybody about who you say you are, but if deep down you know you're a fake, you're a fraudster, you're an imposter, guess what? Eventually that starts to seep out and people can tell, right? So the number one value that I believe protects a good name is integrity. Being the same everywhere. The word integrity comes from the word integer, which means like the same. Like you're the same everywhere. Like you're the same everywhere you are without fear of consequence, without fear of, oh, yeah, what are they going to think about me? I have to switch up this. No. Integrity is, I will do what I need to do because because I believe this is the right thing to do. And whether or not people agree or not, this is what I'm doing. And whether or not people approve or not, this is what I'm doing. That's integrity. So when you're making decisions that could impact your future and impact your integrity, I want you to ask yourself, this step that I'm about to take, is this something that if everyone was to see, if the whole world was to see this, is this something that I would still be proud of? Remember, it's not about the approval. It's about you. This thing you're about to do. If the whole world was to see it, is this something you would still do? Right? Anyways, let's get into the second thing. The second thing that I really believe protects a good name is excellence. I want you to think about like the oldest brand that you know. Like the oldest brand that you know. Like it could be a brand of whatever it is, brand of footwear, of clothing, of cars, of like whatever it is that you know. If you really, really think about it, the brands and the names that stick around for the longest amount of times and stay relevant do so because they are excellent in what they do. They're excellent in how they do things. They're excellent in whatever it is that they produce. It could be a service, it could be a product, but excellence is also a critical part of a good name. So how does that impact you today? If you have something that you're doing, do it excellently, because word travels fast. The tales of your excellence, it travels fast. And especially if you're like in business and you're delivering a service or a product to people, the more excellent your product is and the more excellent your service is, the easier it is for other people to rave and to tell other people about you. But one of the quickest ways to kill a good name is to just like kill the excellence in it, is to remove the excellence from it. That's one of the fastest ways you can get rid of a good name. So practically, what does that look like? That looks like every time you have to deliver, you deliver quality. I didn't say you deliver perfect. No, you deliver quality. A good example of someone who was so excellent was Kobe Bryant, right? I mean, he was so excellent at what he did that like there was even a whole Mamba mentality. He was known as the Mamba, right? There was a whole mentality built around just his idea of excellence and his commitment to excellence. Where it's like you don't stop until you get it done. You outwork everybody. You deliver quality as much as you can whenever you can. That kind of excellence, you can't take that away from a name. When that kind of excellence is attributed to a name, wherever that name is mentioned, that's what pops up. So if you say Kobe Bryant, automatically people start thinking hardworking guy, like phenomenal talent, hardworking guy, will outwork his peers. That is a good name. That is a good reputation, right? So all I'm saying is this: find a way to be excellent in all that you're doing, in whatever it is that you're doing. Deliver quality all the time. All right, so number 3. All right, the third thing that I believe protects a good name for life is authenticity. Being a unique version of whatever it is that you are, whoever it is that you are. That authenticity is so valuable when it comes to building a good name because nobody likes a duplicate. Nobody wants to invest in a duplicate. Nobody wants to focus on a duplicate. Everybody wants to focus on, like, how we say it now, the one of one, right? But being a one of one is one of the fastest ways to separate yourself from the bunch. Like for instance, in terms of podcasting, right? There's a million podcasts out. Like there's so many podcasts out, right? Everybody has a podcast now. And frankly, this was one of the reasons why I didn't want to start a podcast, because I was like, hey, everybody has a podcast. Why start another one? But that's another aside, right? If you're going to differentiate yourself, you're going to truly stand out from the noise and be who you are, like, and show up as who you're supposed to be. You can't do that showing up as a duplicate of somebody else. That also cuts across life. Like, you have to have an authentic approach to whatever it is that you're doing. You have to have an authentic approach to your name and to your reputation. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to do that. No, there's no point doing that. It's hard work trying to be somebody else. No, being you is much easier, and honestly, is the world wants to see you, and they want you for who you are. And there's people that will gravitate towards who you are, and they will gravitate towards the way you do things, and the way you say stuff, and the way you react to things. Yes, that's what the world wants. And recently, in the newsletter, I had written about how with the increase of AI generated content and like so much, I guess, fakes is what you can call it, right? The world is craving authenticity. The world is craving like real people, like real people with real ideas and real opinions and real content. So don't shy away from that. Press into your authenticity. It's a superpower. It's a unique advantage in a world that's full of so much content, so much ideas, and so many opinions. Your authenticity is critical, right? Your authenticity is critical to you having a good name, to you having a good reputation. And I want to also say this, that your authenticity might cost you some things in the short term, in the sense that maybe because of who you are and the things that you don't like, you won't jump on some certain trends, and maybe you lose out on some opportunities because of that. But it's worth it, because if you compromise now, you're going to have to keep it going, right? So let's not do that. So we've established here that at the end of the day, a good name is what people are saying about you when you're not in the room. And you don't need to be wealthy. You don't have to have that family name that is recognized all around the world to have a good name. That's not what we're talking about. What you need is integrity. What you need is excellence. What you need is authenticity. If you protect those things, your good name will outlive you. So here's my challenge to you. As you go through the week, as you go through the weekend, I want you to think about decisions and steps that you're taking. And I want you to ask yourself this: will it tarnish my image, or will it help build a good name? Because remember, money comes and goes, but a good name lasts forever. Please like, subscribe, comment on this video. I would love for you to join us on this journey that we are on as we build the Men Roads podcast. It's been great hanging with you all. Till next time, God bless.